I'd like to hear a little more about, what you do on a day-to-day basis at your companies. I'll go from right to left on my screen. Start with you, Imon. If you want to just talk briefly about your work as a computer scientist.
Sure. Okay, so I graduated from UMKC in 2018. After that, I got my first job at Lockton over on the plaza as a developer. I now work at C2FO, which is right across state line in Leawood, as a software engineer. So my day-to-day, it's kind of weird to be called a computer scientist. I forget that that's what my degree is in sometimes, but I would call myself a software engineer. I work on the web. I work on our main application. It's called Early Pay. And yeah, I work with lots of great people. I work with designers. I work with other engineers, more senior engineers, more junior engineers. So yeah, it's a great place to be.
How many engineers are in the company that you work with?
Ooh, that's a good question. If I had to guess, a ballpark number, a few dozen, okay. Maybe a little bit more than that. On my team specifically, we have about 10 people.
Okay, it's a pretty small small number of engineers, I would think.
Yes, our company recently grew. It's still under 1,000 at the moment.
Okay. Well, that sounds pretty big. Now that you mention that, Gharib, if you want to talk a little bit about your work as a research scientist.
Sure, love that. I think similar to Imon, I think her company is also considered or classified as a startup, maybe. Where I work today is at TripleBlind. TripleBlind is a startup here in Kansas City. It was founded and mainly run by UMKC alumni, actually. And I was employee number 5 at the company. So when I started, every day I was, you might imagine, only 5 people working for the company. We were really trying to bring it to life, a lot of very exciting ideas, a very new domain that solved really very critical bottleneck problems. And at that point, when we started early 2020, there's only less than 10 companies around the world that solved the problem that we are working on, which is the privacy for data. In a nutshell, we train AI systems that try to preserve the privacy of the underlying data. So my day-to-day on our early days, I wear many hats. So in the morning, I'll do a lot of research. Then I'll try to prove that my research or ideas actually work. So I have to code and write implementation, then run my code and then test my code and then evaluate it. And if everything is good, I probably have to present it. So I have to create some PowerPoint slides, just like school projects. And then I have to pitch that. And sometimes I have to even talk with the customers, telling them about how cool this idea is and why it works and try to convince them. And if that actually worked, then we'll move to the next stage and maybe write a patent about it. And if everything goes well, then maybe we can write a research paper and then try to publish it and then go to a conference and present it. So a lot of wide tasks, but that's because it was an early stage startup, which is really super exciting for people, young people. You're trying to expand your knowledge base, etc. Now we grew to up to 50 employees in less than 2 years almost.
I was going to ask how many you have now.
Yes, I think we are a little bit shy to 50 employees. We have raised so far about $32 million in less than 2 years. And we have really big names and customers from around the country, such as Mayo Clinic, healthcare, building very advanced AI systems to help patients and to improve people's healthcare. So now my day-to-day is more about doing research on AI systems. So now I'm a little bit more focused on what I do.
All right. And I think the lesson there is homework never ends. You talked about research and writing and presentations, and I want to get back to, I want to ask each of you about some of those elements later, but it's true, right? You'll always have projects to work on. It's never ending, or it doesn't end with school, I should say. Natalie, tell us about your work as a software engineer at Commerce Bank.
Sure, yeah. So I graduated from UMKC in 2019. And similar to Imon, I'm a web developer. So I'm technically a software engineer at Commerce Bank. On a day-to-day basis, I'm working on our online banking application. So if you are a personal business customer with Commerce Bank, the app that you use online and on your phone is what I work on a day-to-day basis.
How many other software engineers are at Commerce that you work with?
I was trying to think about that after you asked Imon that question. I believe our IT workshop has about 500 employees, but that is including developers, engineers, managers, all that kind of stuff. So a little bit bigger.
That's actually more than I thought you would say. You are all UMKC graduates. I want to ask a question. How did you select a college program? Natalie, we can stick with you, go back the reverse way. What thought process and research went into selecting an undergraduate program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am originally from St. Louis, so I really wanted something that wasn't too far from home, but still far enough that I would be able to get some new experiences. And affordability was also really important for me. So finding places that I could get good scholarships from and had just really good opportunities, with UMKC being so close to downtown Kansas City, I feel like I had a lot of options once I graduated to move into the workforce. So I think those were probably the three biggest things for me.
Gharib, now you attended graduate school at UMKC. What was the research process and thought process selecting that program?
Yeah, great question. It was not easy at all, especially being an international student, never been to the USA before. So it was really difficult to evaluate schools. But similar to Natalie, I think it was important for me to find a program that offers a wide range of topics in computer science or domains. And the School of Computing and Engineering teaches actually everything from IT to AI. Even early 2018, UMKC, or our School of Computing and Engineering, was one of the first in the country that actually offered very specific and very detailed and advanced courses in artificial intelligence. So I thought, okay, this is a great school that actually provide a wide array of topics, so that I was still exploring my career and what I wanted to do for my future. So I'm like, this is great because there's really a wide range of different topics. It was also affordable, and one of the main things that I really liked about UMKC is its location. It was located at the heart of it is located at the heart of the United States. So I'm like, okay, if there's a break or holiday or something, I can just travel 8 hours driving to Chicago, 8 hours to Dallas, and both coasts of the United States, you're right there in the middle. You can really travel anywhere you want. So all these three main things really made me pick UMKC as my choice. And if time goes back, I'll still pick UMKC again.
Well, that's good to hear. Imon, what about you?
I would pick UMKC again as well. So I did not know post high school that computer science is what I wanted to study. It took me a little bit of trial and error. I went to a coding school for a little while, and after that realized that, hey, I really want my degree in this. Like, I think that this is going to propel me forward in life. This is what is interesting to me. And like Natalie said, I too am from St. Louis. It was important for me to be within driving distance of my family. And the reason why it was UMKC over our college town schools, UMKC being in Kansas City allowed me to have an internship pretty much throughout my college career. I was always going to class and then going to my internship, and that really set me apart. And it also allowed me to be getting practical experience while I was in theory classes. So UMKC being in Kansas City was really the selling point, aside from, affordability. In-state tuition was great, got lots of scholarships. So yeah, UMKC all the way, grew up.
And all three of you work in Kansas City, correct?
So I work remotely from Dallas.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes, I just moved to Texas recently. It's interesting, but yes, my company is still in Kansas City.
And I guess that was going to be my question to the group. Kansas City, it's my understanding Kansas City has become a hub for tech startups. I know a couple of you work at startups. Is that a correct assessment? I'll throw that out to the group.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know really the number on top of my head, but there's more than 2,000 startups here in Kansas City. And there's a lot of funding nowadays available for these startups. And if anything, we learned from the last pandemic, COVID, that you don't really have to be at the Silicon Valley to create the next billion-dollar company, etc. This is one of the main things that we are very proud at TripleBlind, that we are a Kansas City startup and we are staying in Kansas City and mainly focused to grow here in Kansas City and recruit more people from Kansas City. Now, we are fully remote startup. We have employees working from all around the country, even from Singapore and different parts of the world. But we still love KC, and it's a very great area to start a company. Things are more affordable in Kansas City. There's good funding, a lot of great opportunities, and there is very good expertise here as well.
Imon, I want to go back to something you mentioned, and that's an internship. And I'll go to the other two as well, but how important was an internship to getting your career started after graduating?
It was crucial, and I will tell everyone this. So the reason I made the connection, I had applied for a scholarship through SCE. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was sponsored by DST. DST is a big name in Kansas City. Well, I guess now SS&C. But I was introduced to someone at DST. They encouraged me to apply for a scholarship while I was, an internship while I was still taking classes, and I thought it was great. So they set me up. I did my interview. I was assigned a team, and I would work, I believe it was, they always worked with my class schedule. So one semester it might have been Monday, Wednesday, Friday from noon to 4, maybe Tuesday, Thursday from 10 to 5. So they really allowed me to be flexible with my class schedule. I chose not to work there after graduation, but it's because I had options. I had an option to stay there. I had an option to go to Lockton, and that's where I ultimately went. So my internship was crucial for allowing me to make my own decisions. I can do what I want. I did like what I was doing, but I just wanted to switch it up. I was there for 2 or 3 years. So internship, crucial. Definitely go that route.
Natalie, how about you? Did you have internships throughout college that helped you?
Yeah, I'll definitely back up that crucial statement. I did an internship the summer before my senior year, so I didn't have to have as much of that flexibility of doing it during classes, but that whole summer before, I had an internship with Enterprise Holdings, so Enterprise Rent-A-Car, National Alamo, all of that. I think it's super important just to feel that difference between doing coding in classes versus coding in an actual job or career. You kind of learn more of that day-to-day, what that's going to be like, learn how to make those, interpersonal relationships, more of those like soft skills I think you pick up with having an internship versus just like coding in college.
There's a question from an attendee asking, how many internships did you have? And was it enough, or would you have liked to have had more diverse experience? Natalie, I'll stick with you. Would you have preferred to have variety of internships, or would classes enough kept you busy enough and you had the right balance?
Yeah, I that was the only internship that I had. Probably having more variety, I would say, is good to get to try it out. One of the things that I really liked about starting my job at Commerce was I got to do a program that they have there, where in my first 18 months of working there, I got to try out a couple different teams. So I still kind of got that variety there. But if I wouldn't have had that opportunity, I think another internship would have been really important.
Gharib, did you have internships as a grad student?
Yes, I did a couple of those, and I wish I did more. Actually, it is important. I think this also goes to there's another question in there. How did you know that it's a good career path? And I think one of the ways to really know what you really like is to try everything. And I think internships will really help you. As Natalie just said, it will shed some light on what is it like to do software development. And then in software development itself, there are so many different branches. You could be working on creating a website interface, an application interface, or on what we call the backend, the hardcore coding on how things work. So if you do different internships with different companies, it is really important. So I'll definitely advocate that you try to get as many as possible of internships.
Let me kind of stick with something similar with that question, and maybe go to you, Imon. The attendee asked, did you know what you wanted your career path to look like when you chose to study computer science, or did you develop those ideas in school or even during your career, your early career? And let me add on to that. Are there minors or different emphasis in school that you can specialize a little bit with your degree? If that made sense.
It does make sense, yes. I did not minor. A lot of people who get their Bachelor of Science in Computer Science will minor in math or even double major in math. I believe, well, when I was in school, the credits, there wasn't that big of a difference in the number of credit hours to get that extra degree. I did not choose to do that, but it's because, like I said, when I chose to go to UMKC to study computer science, yes, I did know what I wanted my career to look like. And that was because I went to a coding school beforehand. I knew that I wanted to be a web developer. The web is what has interested me for so long. And there are so many paths that you can go. Just touching back on the internships really quickly, allow internships, yes, to look good on your resume and to aid you in the classroom, but let it help you decide what interests you. Like, what do you want to do? And an internship is the best way to do that. You can tinker in your own time, sure, but if you can see the real world application of, okay, this is what my job is going to look like post-grad, it is so helpful and will allow you to be confident in the path that you choose.
Let me ask a question about actually interviewing for a job and getting a job. Natalie, what are the job interviews like? How do they, this is from a non-computer scientist, how do they know, how do they find out what you know? You have the degree, you have the piece of paper, but what are the interviews like?
I would say surprisingly a big piece of the interview process, at least in my experience, was actually focusing on like my soft skills, my interpersonal skills, asking a lot of those, what they like to call STAR questions or situational questions. But then outside of that, more focusing on the technical piece. They do a lot of whiteboarding. So they'll present you, different questions and actually have you code for them, but by writing it out on a whiteboard and kind of discussing the process and the thoughts you have. I've also had experiences of being shown different like database diagrams or things like that and having them ask me a question and me having to walk through, by looking at this diagram, what am I able to tell them, things like that.
Were you able to practice doing that? Were there classes at school or just you learned on the fly, that process.
A little bit. I mean, in class, we do work coding by just writing down on a piece of paper. So I've had some experience with that. But there's definitely ways you can prep by finding things online to practice with.
Gharib, was that similar to your job interview experiences?
Yes, I mean, in computer science, it's mostly similar to what Natalie explained. You go through different calls. One of the first call is usually just, and I can speak about this more, I believe, because I've been on the other side of the table and I have hired more than 3 employees now for our company. And the first call, what the interviewer is trying to understand is, can I work with you or not as a candidate? So I'm really trying to find how open-minded are you, your soft skills, your writing skills, your presentation skills. How are you going to handle work under pressure and critical situations, etc. So it's really very important to develop those soft skills. And you asked a very good question here, is that unfortunately, I believe that those soft skills are usually not taught at school. And by soft skills, I mean your presentation skills, your communication skills, risk management, a wide array of skills that are not technical. So you really need to work on those. And then if everything goes well, from there you'll go to the second interview, technical interview. Most likely, it usually starts with the very basic concepts. It's very, very important to be aware and good at those, some very basic concepts in computer science that you might not use it every day at your job, but it's really, really important. It's, for example, you cannot have a physics job if you don't know what's the speed of light, for example. So even though you might forget a lot of those small details, it's really important to be aware of the very basic components that you can build on top of them. And a very good, maybe advice is that do not try to be smart with the interviewer. They usually know when you claim something, just make sure that it's true and only add at your resume what you're really good at, because it's very easy. You can tell whether someone is telling the truth or not. So if you don't know something, say, I'm working on it, I'm learning that, I'm really interested in that. I'm a fast learner. I can learn that very quickly. I've experienced with something similar, but don't say I know it. It's very easy to catch that. So
I bet. And yeah, now that you've been on the other side, you see that probably.
Yes, and usually fresh graduate and students, we are very still young and excited, and we want to say yes to everything. So yeah, and just try to be yourself and relax. There's nothing really, nothing intimidating in an interview. If anything, as a company, we're always looking for good people who are laid back. They know what they are. They know what they're doing, and if they're really not very good at something technically and something specific, it's okay. If we like who you are as a person, you can learn that, right? So it's important to actually showcase a lot of your good soft skills as well.
Imon, have you had similar experiences in the job interview, the job search process?
Absolutely. And I remember being so nervous about the dreaded coding interview. So just to explain, the coding interview, it usually comes with, it's a dreaded word for a lot of people, or a dreaded phrase. So usually people are presented a problem and they have to solve it on the spot. What is not so important is that you get the exact right answer, but you demonstrate your thought process. So whether you're whiteboarding or just explaining it, or maybe you have a coding challenge prior to the actual interview, which is how C2FO does it. You are presented with a problem that you have to complete prior to the interview. You can write comments just like you would in regular code. Let them see your thought process. Don't freak out so much about getting the exact right answer, but if you have a good thought process and can explain it and defend it well, that's really the key. So yes, soft skills are very important. do I want to work with you? Would you be a good fit to our team? Are you open-minded? Are you good at explaining how you think? Are you good at explaining how you think to people that disagree with you? So yes, all of those things. And don't dread the coding interview. You can prep for that with Leak Code. You can ask your friend to give you a problem to solve it in front of them, and practice explaining what's going on in your brain. Just some tips.
You mentioned something I want to follow up on there, but I just want to remind our audience that if you have questions for our panelists, type them in the Q&A chat box that you see at the bottom of your screen, or put them in the chat box, or if you're watching on Facebook, type them in the comments section there. Each of you, in a little different way, talked about a team and fitting in, you know, with your colleagues. How much of your work is independent versus coding or doing software stuff with a larger group? Imon, I'll just stick with you.
Sure. I think that depends on the company and your team. So my team specifically, we work on tasks, usually individually, which our teammates have an opportunity to review before it goes live, if you will. But we also have times where we do pair programming or group coding sessions. That's super important now that, you know, we're all working remotely. My entire team is remote. So it's kind of fun to get in. We call it a party room. We'll get into a party room on Zoom, and I'll be in there. One person will be sharing their screen, and we'll all attack a problem together. That's something that I struggled with in school, working on things, thinking out loud as a group. I just wanted to make sure that, okay, are my thoughts correctly? Can I prove this myself before saying it in a group? But if you have members on your team who will work with you, and maybe this thought wasn't right, but you're on the right path, it helps so much. And you can see how other people think. You can see how they think, what tools they use. Maybe they have a keyboard shortcut that can enhance your flow. So learning from other people is great. But I will say most of the time I do work on things by myself. And if I have a question or want to get another set of eyes, someone is always available.
Natalie, what about your workplace? Is a lot of teamwork as well, or mostly independent?
Yeah, I think a good way to describe my role would be like an individual contributor. A lot of times, like Mon said, I'm working on things on my own, but it's all just a piece of like an entire project that my team is working on. So within like my smaller piece of team, I have 2 other devs I'm working on a regular basis, web developers. We have a mobile developer, we have QA. So all of us are working on our own projects, but without one of those pieces, you know, it's not going to have everybody coming together in the end. We do also, you know, have, when like new people come on the team, we do a lot of paired programming and, you know, working together on stuff like that too.
Gharib, what about you? When you first started out, only 5 employees, it was probably just a lot of everything, right? But what's your work life like with independent versus teams?
Yes, I think Natalie put it in a very good way, an individual contributor. It's like usually software companies, it's like this one big body of different organizations or departments. If I want to give it, if I want to make it similar to the human body, describe it as a human body, every single organ is working on its own, but the entire system overall cannot really function without any one of these individual organs. And I think that's how it is usually in a software company. Even though you are working on a very specific task on your own, whatever you do on that task will affect everyone in the company end to end, from the web interface to the end customer. That's why it is really very important to be working with teams, and going back to that soft skills, the importance of soft skills. Now, my work is a little bit different because nowadays I mostly do research. So a lot of focus time, a lot of individual reading and writing and solving equations, doing a lot of math. And I do most of that on my own. And
You
then I
mentioned
took that
soft.
idea. Yes.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, and then whatever comes as an output from my research, now you have to sit with the software engineering team, the software developers, and explain to them how your thing works, and then they'll try to build it for you, and then you reevaluate it again, and then that goes to the sometimes the product manager, and the product manager takes it to the customer success people, etc. So there's this um, big life cycle for the software that goes through different people, and you need to be, as a researcher, you need to be able to interact with each one of them, understand their pain points, and try to solve it through your research.
You mentioned soft skills again, and all three of you have talked about that. And you all three have great speaking abilities. And so I believe, Gharib, you said you didn't have coursework or didn't learn that as part of coursework. How did you pick it up? How did you develop those skills?
You need to be involved on campus as much as possible. It is very important to join student organizations, and we don't have any shortage of that at UMKC, specifically Computer Science Department, School of Computing and Engineering. There are several organizations in our school on its own. And then from my experience, there's the International Students organization, where you get to learn and talk with different people from different cultures, try different food, etc. So get involved, be involved as much as possible, read a lot of books. That's a very important resource. Some other people have lived a full life and they concluded their experiences, everything in this 300 pages. So try to read as many books as possible. That will improve your reading, your speaking, your decision making, and a lot of these soft skills. So I think these two main things: getting involved, get out there. And I think Imon or Natalie mentioned a very important thing also. Always ask questions. There's nothing called a stupid question. Never hesitate to ask a question. If you don't know something, just ask for it. Never be shy to seek out for help, whether at school or as a new employee or your day-to-day work. If I don't know something, I just ask every day. I ask my software, my colleagues, like, could you explain this 2 lines for me? I don't really know what they do. So I'm not shy to ask questions. It's really important. So never hesitate, never feel shy, never feel that your question is stupid. Always ask questions and reach out for help. It's very important.
That's great advice. Imon, what advice do you have for developing these soft skills?
I would say practice telling your story. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, I went to a coding school before I started at UMKC. I have told that story so many times because people don't understand, like, how did you fall into this? When I was in high school, I thought I wanted to go into the arts. I wanted to be a graphic designer. And while that still interests me and actually helps me being a software engineer, it is not ultimately what I decided for a career. So yes, practice telling your story and be comfortable telling it. Tell when you have to be in an internship interview, or talking to a professor, or meeting someone that goes to a different school that's in a different internship. Tell them your story, how you got here, and be comfortable with it. Own it. That's my advice.
You mentioned something that's related to a question we have about how much creativity, design work is involved in software engineering, both in school and now in the real world. You said it's helped you, right?
It has.
Your artistic.
Yes. So at C2FO, we have designers. So, and I failed to mention this in the beginning, we are in the business of accelerating payments for a discount to the buyer. So we have an application, it's called Early Pay, and that's what I work on. That is my every single day I work on this app. We have designers that come up with exactly what the screen should look like digitally, and then we have to make it work. But not all companies are like this. In my previous role, I played the part of a designer and a developer. So being able to think about how things fit together, whether these are components on a page or how systems fit together, it's all design. And having that background sort of helps me think about the bigger picture and how my little small part might be just the part of the whole, and how I can like conceptualize that. And yeah, so having that mindset definitely helps.
Natalie, I want to ask you about developing soft skills too. And if you could, we have high schoolers watching the program, attending the program. Do you have any advice, not only for college students, but maybe going back to high school? Were there any classes or activities that you participated in that helped develop those presentation and speaking and writing skills?
Yeah, I have advice that I think not only applies to like a specific group of people, but really to everyone, and kind of touches on what Gharib said earlier, is saying yes and like seeking discomfort. I think a big thing that helped me throughout high school and early in college was any opportunity that was brought to me that sounded at all interesting to me, I said yes to, because I wanted to be willing to be open-minded and try new things. And through that, you know, I got a lot of cool experiences. I met a lot of new people. And I think that really helps develop those soft skills by participating in things that maybe you're not usually doing, but you get to try.
That's the way I was in school. I was shy away from some of those things, and but I agree with all that. It definitely helps if you get out of your comfort zone and take chances and not be afraid to fail. And you'll usually find out that you won't fail, and it'll be an enjoyable experience. Let me go around to each of you and ask this question. Imon, we can go back to you. What was the biggest challenge going from a full-time student to a full-time computer scientist, web developer? Was there one thing that stuck out? Like, boy, I wasn't expecting this.
This was a hard pill to swallow. So when I graduated from UMKC in 2018, this is pre-pandemic, we were in the office, and there was no skipping class. There was no, oh, I'll catch up on the notes later. I had to be at the office all day, every day. And so that was really hard for me because I was so used to going from class to class. Here, I'm going to go to class, I'm going to go to my internship, then I'm going to do 5 other things. And that was really tough for me to learn or to get used to. But I will say that pay attention to how you best operate. If you like being in an office, look for an office job. If you like being remote, look for remote. If you want a hybrid, look for something that's hybrid. We have these options now. And I think it's commonplace, especially at my company. Like our engineers, they're pretty much all remote. They're out of the city, out of the state, and that's normal. So you will be in a type of business that allows you to do that. Pay attention to how you best work.
Gharib, what about you? What was the biggest challenge going from student to full-time professional? Anything stick out?
Very hard question. I think for me, technically, besides the good thing is that I like office. I mentioned that we are a fully remote company, but I'm always here at the office. We're located at the plaza, so I come here every day, even though we are fully remote. I think there are some important technical things that you need, that they are very critical to operate in the computer science industry that are not taught at school or not taught deep enough to prepare you for industry. Some of the things could be, for example, GitHub, code version control. So you create a lot of projects at school as a computer science student, but all of those are separated and isolated from each other. There's no need for a management tool that manages different projects as a student. When you start working for a real company, you realize, no, you need to keep track of your code, of your changes, what happened, who changed what and when. So I needed to actually spend some time learning such tools that I did not learn at school. That's why it's always important for you as a student to learn outside your classroom and actually go ahead and implement some code, create something that is runnable, see what's out there in the market, see what companies are actually looking for, and try to learn those on your own.
Natalie, now you step into a job with 500 other colleagues. Was that a particular challenge to going from relatively small class size to working with colleagues probably, and then this relates to another question we have, probably colleagues of various ages as well.
Yeah, I think that is a big thing. It's nice having and like meeting other people who have those different life experiences. Like we were talking about earlier, asking questions, things like that. You learn a lot from people of such a varying range. I think the biggest transition I had from college into a career, kind of like Imon mentioned earlier, I like to call it like working for someone, of like you have more constraints in like the hours you're working, where you're working, things like that, but also working with business lines, I think is a big thing too. Because a lot of times in college, your professor will give you a project, this is what you work on. But when you're working with someone more actively like that, they give you more feedback throughout. It's not like, oh, I'm just doing a project, turning in and I'm done. They'll come back and be like, oh, well, maybe we want to change this. Oh, well, maybe we want to do that. That's what makes it, I think, a little bit different, is you're not just giving something and then just tossing and moving on to the next thing. You're actively working on something for a really long time.
Or how often do you get this? You get assigned a project and then you come in the next day thinking you're going to work on that, but no, there's an emergency somewhere. There's a fire you need to put out. Does that happen quite a bit in your field?
I wouldn't say it happens a ton. Hopefully it doesn't happen a ton. We don't love emergencies.
That's true.
But things do come up like that. I actually just had something like that this week where I've been working on a project and they were like, hey, this seems a little more important. Can you grab this real quick? And then we can pivot back to that, things like that.
I want to ask about schoolwork, and I was an English major, so but I know that computer science is a very difficult degree, a lot of studying, a lot of coursework. Imon, do you have any study tips or advice of how a student can succeed in school? For those high school students out there that may be thinking, that might be too difficult for me. Do you have any advice for someone to get through the program?
Absolutely. So like I mentioned before, I was a little shy at first. I was nervous to explain my thinking and my train of thought in groups. But that was the key for me to being successful in my degree. So making friends in class, having a study group with those people, working on projects together, studying for exams together, that we would just sit in the library and study and bounce ideas off of each other. And maybe one person heard something from the professor that the other people didn't hear. So sharing knowledge and surround yourself with the smart kids. Hang out with who you think the smart kids are, because they're doing something right. And it's probably studying together, studying a lot, and sharing information with each other. So find your study group, make friends in the class. It'll help you outside of the classroom as well. You might be friends with those people. But yes, my tip is find a study group in every class that you're in.
And I would probably say, and you'd probably agree with this, that start those study habits in high school as well, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Start it early. The library, like I lived in the library. It was just a good place to focus and also see people from those other classes. I might have a group session with my algorithms class. Okay, my discrete structures people are over there. So it was like a hub. But start those habits early, definitely.
Gharib, do you have any advice how to tackle a difficult degree like computer science?
Um,
Anything you can add?
well, Imon mentioned the great points. I just want to bring a lot. I wouldn't call it difficult if you like it.
That's
So
true.
there's a little bit of quote. I'm going to bend it here as goes something like, whether you believe it's difficult or not, you are right. So don't believe it's difficult. Don't be intimidated. Um, anything you can, as human beings, and we have always achieved this throughout history in every single domain, we always win, right? As a race in general. And as an individual, there's really nothing impossible. You can do what you want. You just have to build very good habits. And you have to start small. So create a habit of reviewing your course materials every single day. Do not leave things until before the exam night. Do not try to cram everything one night before the exam. One advice I have here is that specifically for high school students and early students, you have to start investing in yourself. Yourself is the biggest asset you have in this life. And being an expert and being very good at one thing means that you are a very, very important person. You'll be valued a lot. It will be very easy for you to find a job that will pay you the number that you want. You can work from home or from your office under your own conditions. The only thing is that you should be really good at what you do. And in order to be that, you have to be consistent. Water is very soft and it cannot naturally break things. But if you look under waterfalls, you see this big pieces of rocks that are carved by water because the water consistently keeps dropping on top of that rock again and again and again every day until it forms it into a new shape. So you need to be like water, just be consistent, study every single day and try different things. Something to mention here is that I think it also popped in the questions. The first thing I did when I went to college, I studied medicine for 1 year. And then I realized that this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. I dropped and I joined computer science. And hopefully, if you're listening to this talk today, this means that a little part of you knows that you actually like this and this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. So study it, explore it, spend a lot of time investing in yourself and just continue learning. There's no other way. You just have to keep going.
You raised an interesting point too. I didn't ask this of any of you, but you said you didn't start out as a computer science major. Natalie, were you always a computer science major? Was that, and how old were you when you decided on that profession?
I decided pretty late in high school what I wanted to do. I took a programming class I want to say my junior or senior year of high school. It was just something that kind of clicked for me. I really enjoyed the problem solving aspect of it. And I was like, wow, this is something I'm good at and I really enjoy. When I went into college at UMKC, Marjorie kind of touched on it earlier, I actually have a bachelor's degree in information technology. So I still got a lot of those web development classes and I learned how to code and all of that. But the other piece of that is I took actually a lot of business classes. So I ended up getting a minor in business just from my course load, kind of like how Imon said with math for computer scientists. I just had to add in one more class and I was able to do that. So it was a little bit of an adjustment, kind of figuring out what exactly I wanted to do, but having that computer science and business piece, I think would just be really helpful moving forward. That's how I decided.
Did you take a lot of computer science courses in high school, a lot of math? What did you math and science in high school as well?
Yeah, I took a lot of AP courses with math and science, and then I did different programming courses my junior and senior year of high school.
All right, we're getting close to the top of the hour, so I just want to remind everyone again, if you have a question for our panelists, type them in the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. You can put them in the chat box as well. If you're watching on Facebook, you can type your question in the comments section there. We have a question about cyber attacks and the situation in Eastern Europe. I may rephrase that question. It might be a good one to end on, maybe kind of removing the political element of it. But before we get to that, I want to ask this question. Imon, we can start with you. What's one thing that you know now that you wish you knew back when you were a student? Is there something that comes to mind?
Yes. Okay. I'm going to back up a little bit. When I was a high school
Sorry
student,
to put you on the spot with that.
No, I have it. So, and this kind of touches on your previous question and Natalie's answer. I was not a supremely good student in math and science in high school. I was probably an average student in math and maybe slightly above average in science, but I didn't take, I don't think, a single AP math class in high school. And you don't have to. I thought that computer science was strictly reserved for the top math students, and there was no way that I could sort of break into this field. I had to take it was my senior year. I was trying to fill up my senior year of high school, and I was trying to fill up my classes, and I was like, there's a programming class, might as well take this. It was Intro to Python. And I was good at it. It was something, like Natalie said, that just clicked to me. So don't discount yourself early and exclude yourself from this group if you're not a standout math or science student. You don't have to be. Yes, you will need some math in college, but don't count yourself out early. If you think, oh, these people are way too smart, we're not. We're just, like Gharib said, consistently trying.
Gharib, what's one thing that you know now that you wish you would have known back when you were a student?
I'd have bought more Bitcoin that time.
Great. That's a great answer.
But it's not just about money. When I talked about Bitcoin, where I wanted to go with that is I wish I read more and knew more about the technology happening at that time. And that goes back again to my point of being consistent and investing in yourself. As young as when you're young, when you're in high school, life is good. You want to have a lot of fun. You do a lot of cool stuff outside of school. That's good. Having fun, it's important, but it's also important that you capitalize and put a lot of investment in yourself. I mean, we read, I think I saw it as a meme online or something, that you imagine every day somebody gives you about $84,000, something like that. And you have to spend that money every day. You cannot roll it over to the next day, etc. What are you going to do? You're not, by the end of the day, you're naturally going to spend every single dollar of it. You're not going to keep anything, right? You're not allowed to keep it in your bank, etc. You have to spend it all. So if somebody gives me such an offer, I'm going to spend all of that in good ways. This is how many seconds you have per day. So make sure that you don't waste any of your very precious time, which is the most valuable thing that you possess, on things that are just waste. Now, having fun and relaxing yourself and just chilling, sometimes it's important for your mental health and everything to recharge yourself, but also make sure that you're always balanced. You're always working on yourself. You're always aware of what's going on out there. You're always the top of your class and studying hard and working hard. It's really very important. So yeah, I just would have told myself to invest more in me.
That's a great answer. Natalie, what about you? What do you know now that you wish you knew back when you were walking the campus of UMKC?
I think a thing that a lot of people around our age go through is imposter syndrome, of just feeling like you don't fit in, everyone's doing better than you, things like that. And just knowing that a lot of other people are in the same shoes as you and feeling the same way. And, you know, taking those opportunities to talk to other people about how you're feeling, and, you know, to find that confidence. What's the thought I had? Oh, and, you know, not being afraid to fail. I think that was my biggest thing going from high school into college onto my career, is I was a big perfectionist when I was younger, and kind of getting out of that and learning that it's okay to try things and fail, because even from that, you do learn really good lessons.
Right. I don't know if any of you are baseball fans or not, but even the best, the Hall of Fame players fail 2 out of 3 times at the plate. So I always try to remember that as well. We are close to the top of the hour. There's a question about the potential of cyber attacks in the U.S. Let me I think there's always that chance of everybody's worried about cybersecurity. And it just shows how much we rely on a digital world now for all parts of our lives. And with that in mind, and I'll throw this out to anyone, or all 3 of you can jump in, or anyone can. What's the job market like? Are there a lot of job openings, or do you see an increase in the future?
The job market now is hot. And I think, to put it in one word, however, at the same time, it is super competitive. There's a lot of openings and all kind of companies, small, medium to large, big companies, and they're paying a lot of good money too. But it's also competitive. So again, you have to you don't have to worry about the future. Just work on yourself and be exceptional, be really good. And I think that the job market will continue to grow and become better, specifically in the United States. Now there's a lot of talks about Web3, decentralization, with all the crypto technology, NFTs and everything. That's a whole new market that will also require and will need hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, Europe itself right now needs more than 500,000 data scientists. There's no 500,000 data scientists in the world to fill that specific need for Europe itself. So the hot market is very hot. You just need to be really good.
Natalie, Imon, any comments about the market? Sounds like you guys are in the perfect field at the right age too.
Yes. If you do this right, this will give you a lot of opportunities. Study hard while you're in school. Make yourself the best you that you can be. And remember life after graduation. What do you want to be able to do in your free time? What do you want your work to look like? Think about now, and definitely work very hard now so that your future is how you want it to be.
All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you, Imon. Thank you, Gharib. Thank you, Natalie. It's been a wonderful opportunity to pick your brains and get some great advice about a computer science career. And I also want to thank Marjorie Eisenman at the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Computing and Engineering. And thank you all for attending today's program. We will have a recording of today's event posted on the Linda Hall Library website at lindahall.org. So look for that by early next week. So thank you all again, and have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.